I sit at the oak dining table that has witnessed 3 decades of Carter family dinners, arguments, and celebrations. The table where my grandfather taught me to play checkers. The table where I once believed I belonged. Now, I'm surrounded by 3 faces that share my blood but not my trust. My mother, Vivian, father, Douglas, and brother, Grant. Callista, honey, thank you for coming. Mom's voice has that sugary quality she reserves for asking favors. At 62, her blonde hair is turning silver at the temples, but her manipulative tactics haven't aged a day. I glance around the dining room of my childhood home in Garner, North Carolina. The wallpaper peels slightly near the ceiling, and the hardwood floors have lost their shine. Family photos line the walls, Grandpa's fishing trips, my high school graduation, Grant's wedding. I'm in fewer pictures after I turn 19. What's this about? I ask, though I already know. The foreclosure notice I received from my bank contact last week told me everything. Dad clears his throat. At 65, he still commands the room with his broad shoulders and booming voice, though both have diminished with age. We've hit a rough patch, financially speaking. Again? The word slips out before I can stop it. Grant shoots me a warning look. My brother, always the peacekeeper when it benefits him. At 36, he's grown soft around the middle, comfortable in his role as the favored child. Mom slides a calculator across the table. The display shows a number that would make most people flinch. $180,000. That's what we need, she says, her fingers trembling slightly, to save the house. I stare at the number, feeling nothing. The shock they expect doesn't come. Dad launches into what sounds like a rehearsed speech. This house has been in our family for generations. Your grandfather would want us to keep it. It's about family duty, Callista. Family duty, I repeat, tasting the bitterness of those words. Grant leans forward, his expression carefully crafted into one of concern. We wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate, Callie. You know that. I do know. They only call when they need something. Usually money. What happened to the equity loan you took out last year? I ask. Mom and Dad exchange glances. Business investments, Dad mutters, like the business investment that ate my inheritance. The question hangs in the air like smoke. Dad's face darkens. That was 15 years ago. Are you still harping on that? $120,000. I state the number like a fact, because it island, my college fund, my future. That business would have set us all up for life if what, Dad? If the market hadn't changed? If your partner hadn't backed out? If you'd actually understood the industry? My voice remains calm, which seems to unnerve him more than if I'd shouted. Mom dabs at invisible tears. We've always supported you, Callista. When you needed us. When did I need you? When I was working 3 jobs to put myself through school. When I graduated with honors and none of you showed up? You're nothing but a freeloader who abandoned this family. Dad's fist hits the table, making the calculator bounce. The room falls silent. Grant studies his hands. Mom looks away. I smile. A small, quiet smile that confuses them. I'm not your ATM, I say finally. Callista Marie Carter. Mom begins, her voice rising with indignation. Her tears start flowing for real now. Not the calculated drops she's famous for, but genuine panic as she realizes I'm not going to write a check. You don't understand what this means, she whispers. We'll lose everything. I close my eyes briefly, and I'm 19 again. Standing in black at my grandfather's funeral, clutching his framed photograph. The family attorney reading the will. To my granddaughter Callista, I leave $120,000 for her education and future security. My plans had been set: technical university, computer science degree, a future built on brains instead of beauty, in a town that valued the latter over the former. But that night, Dad had sat me down in this very room. The family business is struggling, just a temporary setback, if we had capital to invest. 3 days later, I signed over my inheritance check with trembling hands. Within 18 months, the money had vanished, along with my college dreams. The same week, Dad declared the business officially failed. Grant drove up in a new truck. I opened my eyes, returning to the present. To the 3 faces watching me, waiting for me to rescue them as I've done before. I stand up slowly, feeling a strange power in being the tallest person in the room for once. I pick up my water glass and place it carefully on a coaster, a final gesture of respect for the house that was never really my home, but will soon be mine in ways they can't imagine. I've made my decision, I say, my voice steady. Callista, please, Mom reaches for my hand. I step back. Good night. As I walk toward the door, I hear Grant whisper to Dad, "What are we going to do now?" I close the front door behind me with a soft click that feels more final than any slam. In the quiet evening air of Garner, with the scent of magnolias heavy around me, I finally allow myself to smile fully. They have no idea what's coming. Later that night, I spread the financial documents across my Raleigh apartment's kitchen counter. 15 years of meticulous record-keeping. The manila folder marked Inheritance sits heaviest among them, though it contains only 3 papers: grandfather's will, the bank check receipt, and the business investment agreement I signed with trembling fingers at 19. $120,000. My future, handed over to my father in a moment of family loyalty I've regretted every day since. The business ledgers tell the story plainly. Dad burned through my inheritance in 18 months. Office equipment, business dinners at steakhouses, a company car that somehow ended up as Dad's personal vehicle, marketing consultants who delivered nothing but invoices. What the ledgers don't show is Grant's new Ford F-150 that appeared in our driveway the same week. Dad claimed the business needed emergency capital, the truck with custom wheels and a premium sound. The system while I was eating ramen noodles and working morning shifts at Percolate Coffee. I trace my finger over the columns of numbers. The evidence of betrayal preserved in black and white. My first apartment after moving out was a studio above Garner's laundromat. The air perpetually humid, the walls vibrating with industrial dryers. Rent was $450 monthly, exactly what I could afford while working at the coffee shop before dawn, tutoring high school students in math each afternoon, and entering medical billing data until midnight. Sleep became a luxury, confined to 4-hour blocks. I'd collapse into my second-hand futon, too exhausted to shower, then wake to do it all again. The single lamp by my makeshift desk flickered as I studied, the yellow glow barely reaching the textbook pages. I remember calling home once, during finals week. Mom answered, the sound of their backyard grill party in the background, Dad laughing, Grant's new girlfriend squealing at some joke. "We're celebrating your father's new business contact," Mom explained, her voice distant. "Is everything okay? Do you need something?" I'd needed sleep, support, recognition that while they barbecued, I was drowning. "No," I'd answered. "I'm fine." I wasn't fine. I was becoming someone harder, someone who understood family loyalty ran in one direction in the Carter household. Dad the dreamer, the visionary, the man whose charm convinced a 19-year-old to hand over her future. His charisma had always been his deadliest weapon. Eyes sparkling with the next big opportunity, voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper when discussing our family business. Always ours when he needed money. Always his when decisions were made. Grant learned manipulation at the master's knee. My brother, who never held a job longer than 6 months, but always had cash for trips to Atlantic City. Who called only when his credit cards maxed out. Who referred to my education as playing with computers, while he pursued real business opportunities that mysteriously never materialized. And Mom with her tears always ready, her allegiance firmly with Dad regardless of consequences. "He's doing his best, Callista," became her mantra, as if intention absolved responsibility. As if his dreams justified sacrificing mine. I might have broken completely if not for Professor Williams noticing my bloodshot eyes during advanced statistics. "You have talent," he told me after class, "but talent means nothing if you destroy yourself." He arranged a programming internship that paid better than my 3 jobs combined. Martha Chen at TriStat Technologies became my next lifeline, creating a work schedule that accommodated my remaining classes. "I worked my way through school too," she said, sliding a coffee across her desk during my interview. "Some of us have to climb the hard way." Then Naomi Briggs, the attorney who took my case when TriStat's competitor tried stealing my algorithm. "You understand documentation," she'd said, impressed by my organized evidence. "Most people can't prove what happened to them. You can." Graduation day dawned clear and bright. I sat among strangers, my name called to unexpected honors. Callista Carter, summa cum laude. The announcement echoed across the auditorium as I crossed the stage, searching the audience for familiar faces. The 4 seats I'd reserved remained empty. Mom had promised they'd come. We wouldn't miss it, she'd said the week before. Dad's so proud. The ceremony ended, Students reunited with families clutching flowers and balloons. I stood alone, diploma case in hand, watching celebrations unfold around me. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Grant's car trouble. So sorry. Dinner next week? There was no dinner. No acknowledgement. 3 days later, TriStat offered me a permanent position with benefits and a salary that finally allowed me to breathe. Standing in my new office, I made a vow as I unpacked my single box of belongings. The photo of grandfather went on my desk. The business agreement with my father went into a locked drawer. I will never be vulnerable to them again, I whispered to the empty room. Not financially, not emotionally, not ever. I didn't know then that 15 years later, I'd be planning to take the very house where they'd betrayed me. But I knew something had changed. I was no longer the daughter who could be sacrificed for their comfort. I was becoming the woman who would eventually hold the deed to their future. 2 days later, the window of my corner office frames the Raleigh skyline like a postcard. Not the largest office at Meridian Data Systems, but mine through merit, not manipulation. 6 years of climbing from junior analyst to department head, each promotion earned through competence rather than connections. I straightened the framed certificate on my wall. Employee of the Year, 2 years running. The brass plate catches morning light, reflecting onto my organized desk where I review quarterly projections. Numbers that make sense. Numbers that don't disappear into family emergencies. Your 10 o'clock is here, says Maya, my assistant, poking her head through the doorway. I nod, closing the investment portfolio I've been reviewing during my morning coffee. Nothing extravagant. Conservative index funds, a modest IRA, and the emergency fund that took 3 years to build. Financial stability feels like oxygen after nearly drowning. The morning passes in productive meetings and problem solving. At lunch, I decline joining colleagues at the trendy bistro across the street, preferring the quiet of my office to review my savings spreadsheet. The numbers tell a story of recovery slow, methodical, and completely under my control. My phone buzzes at 2:17 p.m. Mother. I let it go to voicemail, as I've done for months. But something about the timing feels deliberate, calculated. When the notification appears, I press play despite my better judgment. Callista, honey. Her voice wavers between theatrical and genuine distress. Your father, his heart. The doctor says the stress is making everything worse. A practiced pause. The bank called again about the house. We're behind $280,000 now with all the fees. If only we had more support. The familiar weight of obligation presses against my ribcage. I delete the message, but the numbers stick. $280,000. Almost exactly the combined value of my investment portfolio and emergency fund. That evening, I pull county records while sitting at my kitchen table. The search reveals the truth behind my mother's carefully scripted message. 5 equity loans. 3 refinances. A decade of treating their home, my grandfather's home, like an ATM. Computer or tablet tonight? Mrs. Abernathy asks from across the hall as I collect my mail. The retired librarian tracks my evening routine with neighborly precision. Research, I answer, unlocking my door. Family matters. Inside, I dial a number I've kept for situations exactly like this. Briggs Legal Services, answers a brisk voice. Naomi, it's Callista Carter. I need your counsel. Not time. The following Wednesday, I sit across from Naomi in her downtown office. Floor-to-ceiling windows offer a view of the courthouse where, 15 years ago, she represented a distant cousin in a property dispute. Her card has remained in my wallet ever since. The situation is straightforward. Naomi says, tapping her tablet. Your family home enters foreclosure proceedings next month. The bank will auction it unless the outstanding balance is paid. And if someone purchases it at auction? I ask, although I already know the answer. Your parents would face eviction within 30 days. The leather chair creaks as I shift my weight. Outside, clouds gather over the city. What if I wanted to buy it? Naomi removes her glasses. That's an interesting approach. May I ask why? The question demands honesty I rarely give voice to. That house holds the only good memories I have left. My grandfather built the study with his own hands. He taught me to play chess in that room, to value strategy over emotion. I meet her gaze directly. I won't let them gamble it away completely. She nods, understanding the unspoken history between us. We can arrange a private purchase before the auction. Your identity would remain confidential until closing. They'd never sell to me directly. They won't have a choice if the bank forces the sale. She reopens her tablet. Let's discuss your finances. 2 days later, I sit across from Thomas Wilson at Triangle Mortgage Associates. The broker reviews my credit score, income statements, and bank balances with professional detachment. You qualify for the full amount, plus 25% down payment, he confirms, sliding the pre-approval letter across his desk. The interest rate is competitive given current market conditions. I sign my name on multiple documents, my hand steady despite the magnitude of what I'm setting in motion. The pen feels weightier than usual, each signature another step toward reclaiming what was stolen from me, not just money, but dignity. Congratulations, Thomas says. You're on your way to becoming a homeowner. The words sound foreign, almost comical. I've walked through that house 1,000 times, memorized every creaking floorboard, and yet never truly belonged there. Naomi calls the following week while I'm reviewing data models at work. Everything's proceeding as planned. The bank accepted our offer. We close in 20 days. That evening, my phone explodes with notifications. A video has gone viral in our extended family and local community circles. Mother, eyes carefully reddened, recounts how her ungrateful daughter has abandoned the family in their time of need. After everything we sacrificed for her education, she sobs to the camera. The irony burns like acid in my throat. Comments flood in beneath the video. What kind of daughter leaves her parents homeless? Family should come first. Must be nice to be so selfish. The calls begin an hour later. Aunt Patricia, who attended exactly 0 of my college graduation ceremonies. Pastor Wilson, who never questioned why I suddenly couldn't afford youth group trips. Mrs. Kelly from down the street, who watched me leave for my night job while my brother drove past in his new truck. I silence my phone and open my laptop instead. The mortgage documents await my electronic signature. 20% of my life savings transfers from my account with a single click. The remainder will move at closing. For 2 weeks, I maintain absolute silence while the social pressure builds. Former classmates send messages asking if I'm really that cold. Distant relatives remind me of blood obligations. My brother's wife posts thinly veiled comments about family. Traitors. Through it all, I continue signing documents, transferring funds, and preparing for what comes next. The day before closing, I request a personal day from work, my first in 18 months. I drive to a coffee shop 3 towns over, where no one knows my name or my family. I order a plain black coffee and open my laptop to the final document from Naomi. Upon completion of this transaction, ownership transfers to Callista Marie Carter. Outside, spring rain taps against the windows. Inside, my finger hovers over the touchpad. With a single click, the house that witnessed my greatest loss becomes mine. Not through manipulation or guilt, but through the same determined work ethic my grandfather tried to instill in all of us. Only one of us was listening. I close my laptop and sip my coffee, tasting something beyond the bitter brew. Justice, served piping hot after 15 years on ice. The next day, I sign my name with precise strokes across the final document in Naomi's sunlit office. Each letter feels like a declaration of independence. 15 years of patience crystallized into a single signature. Congratulations, Miss Carter. The bank representative slides the folder toward Naomi, her face professionally neutral. The purchase is complete. Naomi's eyes meet mine, a hint of satisfaction crinkling their corners. She places a small brass key in my palm. It's official. The house is yours. My fingers close around the key, the same door my grandfather installed with his own hands. A tear escapes before I can stop it, falling onto my thumb where it catches the light. Sorry, I whisper, quickly wiping my cheek. Don't apologize. Naomi squeezes my shoulder. This isn't just business for you. I nod, unable to explain the storm brewing inside me, vindication and grief swirling together like oil and water, refusing to blend. The drive back to my apartment is quiet. The radio announcer chatters about spring temperatures, oblivious to how my world has just shifted on its axis. Meanwhile, across town, chaos erupts. My phone buzzes with notifications, 6 missed calls from Dad, 3 from Mom, 2 from Grant. A text from my cousin Amber. What did you do? Your dad is calling everyone for emergency loans. I smile despite myself. Dad's desperation is a familiar dance calling old golf buddies, distant relatives, even his former business partner Lenny, who he swore stole from him years ago. His pride always bends when money is involved. Through Amber's updates over the next 3 days, I watch their panic build like floodwaters against a weakening dam. Grant reaches out to friends whose names I recognize from local police blotters. Mom intensifies her social media campaign, posting teary-eyed videos about ungrateful children and family loyalty. Her army of Facebook sympathizers grows, their comments sharp with judgment about a daughter they've never met. Are you sure about this? Naomi asks when I visit her office to review the rental agreement. Once we send this letter, there's no going back. I've been going forward for 15 years. I reply, my voice steadier than my heartbeat. Send it. The letter arrives at my childhood home on a Tuesday morning. Amber calls me immediately, her voice hushed. I was dropping off some groceries for your mom when the certified mail came. And? My stomach tightens. They read it at the kitchen table. Your mom dropped into a chair like her legs gave out. Your dad's face went white, hospital white. And Grant. He crumpled up the paper, then smoothed it out again like he was afraid to damage it. I close my eyes, picturing the scene. The oak table where so many verdicts had been passed against me, now witnessing their reckoning. Amber pauses. The letter said you're their landlord now? Is that true? Yes. Holy shit, Callie. Her voice holds something new: respect, maybe even awe. The following afternoon, I pull into the driveway of what is now legally my property. Naomi's car is already there, her professional presence a shield I'm grateful for. We arrange our documents on the dining room table rolls reversed from my last visit. They file in like reluctant students to detention. Mom's eyes are swollen, her hands clutching a tissue. Dad's shoulders droop beneath his faded polo shirt. Grant stands in the doorway, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Please sit down, I say, gesturing to the chairs across from us. This is ridiculous. Dad sputters. You can't just... I can and I have. I slide the rental agreement forward. Fair market value is $1,800 monthly. First month's rent plus security deposit of $3,600 due upon signing. Mom gasps. That's outrageous. It's standard, Naomi interjects, her voice calm, as is this cease and desist regarding the defamatory social media posts. Mom's mouth opens, closes, opens again. For once, tears don't materialize on command. You have 24 hours to decide, I continue. Sign the agreement or vacate within 30 days. You can't throw us out of our own home. Grant steps forward, fists clenched. It's not your home anymore. I meet his gaze without flinching. It's mine. We'll fight this, Dad warns, his voice trembling with impotent rage. We'll get lawyers. You're welcome to try. Naomi slides her business card across the table. Have them contact me directly. Their objections bounce off us like rain against a window, initial outrage dissolving into desperate bargaining, then sliding toward reluctant acceptance as legal reality sinks in. But we're family, Dad finally says, his voice small and bewildered. The trump card he's played my entire life, now revealed as the weakest hand at the table. I look around the dining room at the worn floor my grandfather installed, at the window where he taught me to identify cardinals and blue jays, at the doorframe where he marked my height every birthday. Yes, I say quietly. And this is what family accountability looks like. I stand, arranging my papers with deliberate care. For 15 years they held all the cards. Now, in this familiar room where I once surrendered my future with trembling hands, I reclaim what was always meant to be mine. Not just a house. My voice. The next day, I arrive at my childhood home, to find cars lining the driveway and spilling onto the street. Aunt Patricia's silver Buick, Uncle Robert's pickup truck, even Pastor Williams's modest sedan. Mother has rallied the troops. There she is, announces Grant as I step through the front door. His voice carries the false cheer of a game show host introducing the villain. 20 pairs of eyes swivel toward me. The living room brims with extended family I haven't seen in years, arranged in a horseshoe formation like a firing squad. In the center sits an empty armchair, my designated seat for this ambush. Callista, honey, Mother rushes forward, arms outstretched. Everyone wanted to talk to you. I nod once, keeping my handbag close. Inside rests a folder containing 15 years of meticulously preserved evidence. The weight of it against my hips steadies me. Pastor Williams rises from his seat by the fireplace. At 78, his frame has shrunk, but his voice still carries the authoritative resonance that once made 12-year-old me squirm during Sunday school lessons about honor and obedience. Callista, we're concerned about the path you've chosen. He gestures toward a wall newly adorned with family photographs. I notice they've curated the display carefully. Christmas mornings where we appear united, fishing trips with Grandpa, my high school graduation. Not a single image reveals the truth that followed. Honoring thy father and mother isn't merely a suggestion, Pastor Williams continues. It's a commandment. Aunt Patricia dabs at her eyes with a handkerchief. Your grandfather would be heartbroken to see this family torn apart over something as meaningless as money. The mention of my grandfather ignites something in my chest. I open my handbag and extract the folder. Would you like to know what my grandfather actually wanted? I ask, my voice steady despite the heat rising in my throat. I lay out the documents one by one on the coffee table. Bank statements, business ledgers, loan applications with my inheritance as collateral. Receipts for Grant's truck purchased the same week Dad declared a business emergency. 15 years ago, I received $120,000 for my education. This money was explicitly designated by my grandfather for my future. I point to the will excerpt, highlighted in yellow. 3 days later, I signed it over to my father for a family business that failed within 18 months. The room grows uncomfortably still. Uncle Robert studies his shoes. While I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college, my parents renovated their kitchen. I place before them the Home Depot receipts I found in the attic last week. While I ate ramen in a studio apartment with no heat, my brother bought a new truck. The financing agreement lands next, Grant's signature bold at the bottom. I kept every piece of paper. Every broken promise, every receipt that showed where my future went. I looked directly at Pastor Williams. My grandfather taught me about responsibility and consequences. I'm honoring him by ensuring this family finally faces both. Mother's face crumples. We made mistakes, but we're still your family. Yes, you are. I gather my documents and walk toward Grandpa's study, which is why I'm offering you a chance to stay. The family trails behind me like a reluctant funeral procession. I enter the study, a room that still smells faintly of pipe tobacco and old books, and stand behind the oak desk. My finger traces the initials, W.C., carved into the corner. Walter Carter, the man who believed in education, responsibility, and me. You can stay as tenants or leave. Those are the only options. I remove the rental agreement from my folder and place it on the desk. Fair market value. First and last month's rent due immediately. Father's shoulders slump as he approaches the desk. You'd make your own parents pay rent. Yes. The single word hangs between us, unadorned and final. Later that evening, after the extended family has retreated with whispered judgments, we gather around the dining table, the same table where they ambushed me weeks ago. Naomi, my attorney, sits beside me, her presence a shield against old patterns. Father signs first, his pen hovering briefly before committing to the page. His signature looks smaller than I remember. Mother signs next, her hand trembling so violently the pen scratches across the paper. She won't meet my eyes. Grant's turn comes last. The pen creaks in his grip, his knuckles white with barely contained rage. He scrawls his name and shoves the document toward Naomi. Rent is due on the 1st of each month. I say, standing to signal the end of our business. Late payments incur a 10% penalty. As days pass, the true story spreads through Garner's social circles. Mother's carefully cultivated narrative of abandonment crumbles as friends learn about the inheritance, the 3 jobs, the graduation she didn't attend. Mrs. Peterson from next door stops me as I inspect the exterior paint. I always wondered why you left so suddenly, she says, her eyes wiser than I remembered. Your grandfather would be proud of you standing on your own 2 feet. Father's business associates nod respectfully when I visit the hardware store, a silent acknowledgement that changes everything. The narrative has shifted from ungrateful daughter to something closer to the truth, a woman reclaiming her legacy from those who tried to steal it. On Sunday, I overheard someone in the grocery store whisper, "That's Callista Carter, the one who bought her family's house when they couldn't keep it." For the first time in 15 years, my name carries the weight of power instead of pity. The house is mine. The truth is known. And in Grandpa's study, surrounded by his books and the scent of his memory, I finally feel at home. The autumn sun catches the fresh white paint of the porch as I pull into the driveway. 6 months of ownership has transformed my grandfather's house, our house, from a neglected liability into something resembling its former glory. The sagging steps now stand firm, and hydrangeas bloom where weeds once claimed territory. I check my watch precisely noon before retrieving the leather-bound rent ledger from my passenger seat. Punctuality matters in our new arrangement. Inside, I find Dad polishing the hallway table, his work uniform pressed for his afternoon shift at Johnson's Hardware. At 65, inventory clerk wasn't the retirement he imagined, but the 35 hours weekly keep the rent paid. Callista, he nods, the familiar boom in his voice subdued to something approaching respect. Mom emerges from the kitchen wiping flour from her hands, her pharmacy cashier name tag still pinned to her blouse. I made apple cobbler, your grandfather's recipe. The mention of Grandpa pulls me toward his study. The door creaks open to reveal what 6 months of weekend restoration has accomplished. Fishing tackle gleams in custom display cases along walls the exact shade of blue he favored. His books line the shelves, spines aligned perfectly, not a speck of dust in sight. Above his restored desk hangs the photograph I treasure most, Grandpa, teaching 10-year-old me to cast a line at Lake Wheeler, his weathered hands guiding mine with infinite patience. I run my fingers along the carved edge of his desk where he taught me to balance ledgers. The numbers never lie, Callista, he would say. Remember that. The dining room table witness to that final confrontation now hosts monthly family dinners with very different dynamics. Tonight's is our 6th. Grant arrives last, entering without knocking, his second job leaving shadows under his eyes. Traffic, he explains, hanging his jacket beside the door. No more slamming it on the floor for others to retrieve. We sit in our assigned places, passing dishes without the old tension. Conversation flows cautiously around neutral topics, weather, community news, work schedules. When Mom mentions needing new tires, she doesn't follow with hints about financial assistance. Instead, she asks about recommended brands. Wilson's Auto has a special this week, I tell her, passing the green beans. 20% off if you mention Jefferson Middle School fundraiser. I'll check it out, she says, making a note on her phone. Thank you. After dinner, I walk the perimeter of each room alone. My fingers trace the doorframe where pencil marks record my childhood growth spurts. In the kitchen, I stand where Grandpa taught me to bake his famous cornbread, adjusting my height to match his measurements. The porch swing creaks beneath me as twilight settles over the neighborhood. Last week, I established the Walter Carter Technical Scholarship Fund for students who lost financial support. 3 young women attended my first financial independence workshop yesterday. Family legacy is about values, not just blood, I told them. The morning sun will find me here again, watching light filter through trees my grandfather planted. There's peace in preserving what matters while releasing what doesn't. The house represents both justice and mercy, now the consequences my family needed and the second chance they didn't deserve but received anyway. In my grandfather's office sits a framed quotation I discovered among his papers. True inheritance isn't what you're given, but what you do with what was taken from you. The swing rocks gently as neighborhood lights flicker on. Different houses, different stories. How many families struggle with the same impossible choices between obligation and self-respect? What would you fight to preserve, regardless of the cost? Answers vary, but the question remains the same. When is the price of family too high to pay?